Hi, this is Garrison Comstock with Garrison Team Real Estate. I'm here with your South Bay Housing December 2020 update here for the South Bay, most homes. So I'll get right into it, go into the stats here for what goes on. If you've watched this before, you know what to expect. South Bay housing market, December 2020. So the statistics are a little bit different than they have been the past couple months, and this is expected. We expected the market to kind of slow in the beginning of November for the election, and then every year it slows a little bit later at the end of the month for Thanksgiving, and then stays slow through December. So you can see that in some of these numbers. We have a little bit less closed properties in November than October, and we'll see that again most likely here in December. Less pending than we had in October. And also the big one is less new listings than we had in October. So if you've noticed, if you've been looking at homes kind of on Zillow, Trulia, or with me over the past month or so, you've seen inventory dry up even more than it has previously. If you've been looking for a property and reasonably you'd get 2 or 3 new properties that might interest you a week. You've gotten 1 maybe the past couple weeks. The month supply, 2.1 months. So we've gone down in supply. So that just means that we still bought up most of the other properties. We haven't had as many come to market as have been bought. This is a low number. Should know by now, if you've watched this before, that a 4 to 6 months, around 5 months is a healthy market. Over that is a seller's, or over that is a buyer's market, and under that's a seller's. 100% of list price, we got to triple digits. So homes that are selling are still selling for a lot. If the average is at 100%, that means many homes are selling for over list price. And then the median days on market is 11. It means half the homes are selling quicker than 11 days. I previously just had a listing that sold in 6. So generally, this is expected. We still have no inventory. We don't expect to get much more inventory. Interest rates are low, so demand is high, but I'll go over all of that. But let's take a look at kind of what's happened here in the past 6 or so years, because a lot of folks are worried about home prices. Home prices are getting very high. I mean, they've been very high, especially in this area. So a lot of our neighbors are worried. So let's kind of go over the context of some of these numbers. So since 1991, historically, appreciation happens at about 3.8% per year. I usually say 3 to 5% a year. Now nationwide, we've had 6.1% since 2012. If you've been living in the South Bay, you've seen a raise higher than this. So all of these numbers I'm about to go over, these are national numbers, and I'll kind of adjust them for what I've seen in the South Bay, because the South Bay is just a little different. We have, higher income here, and we have different types of properties. So this probably adjusts to where we've raised a little bit higher than this since 2012, a little bit over 6.1%. I think we're on the high side. That's the average. So if you take historic appreciation at 3.8% and you go from the year 2000 to today, this is what the graph would look like when it comes to median sales price nationwide. So if you look at this, it's a nice steady incline. So what I've been telling my neighbors for years is, you pick any 10-year segment in the history of real estate, and you can see it might go up, it might go down, but in 10-year segments, real estate generally goes up in price, and some, a lot of times doubles in price. So this is what happened since 2000 in home prices, median home prices in the nation. You can see in the 2000s, it went up and peaked in 2005, right before the bubble burst, and then decreased. There was tons of inventory here. Nobody had any money. So a lot of supply, not very much demand, and home prices plummet. And then back up to where we just surpassed where that 3% average, 3.8% average appreciation would have taken us. But if you look at this, the way I see this graph is most future homeowners and clients that I talk to, real estate, it's not a buy here, sell here, or buy here, sell here plan. It's really a buy here and hold and try to buy something else plan. Real estate is a long-term investment. That's the best way to use it. So if you bought here, we've seen those people who bought in the year 2000, they're feeling great about their property now. you bought here, still, like if you held on to your property 10 years later, 2016, I'd say this is the national average, you're right about where you were. And then boom, today you're still feeling pretty good about your property. So long-term real estate, fantastic investment as always. This graph adjusted for the South Bay, we didn't see such a volatile drop as the rest of the nation. This is the average. So this is the average high and the average low. So I don't know what our high looked like. Obviously, it's higher than these numbers because we have a lot of prices. But I know that the difference between these two was a little bit more shallow. So imagine it coming down like this. And then we surpassed our values of where they were here in as early as 2015, 2016. We were up past where they were at their peak. So that's kind of how our graph looked. So this is generally how home prices work. As supply of inventory goes down, prices go up. This is what's happened to supply. When everybody lost all their money because we had a bunch of adjustable rate mortgages and they all came too, the supply went up. And then obviously now the supply has been down. This is where we want it though. This is months of supply, that number that I mentioned earlier, that we're in the twos right now. You can see. We want it between 4 and 6 somewhere. So we were kind of staying in this area, healthy market, 2015, 2016, 2017. And then ever since, 20, and by the way, this is every year, right? So we kind of peak in May and June of each year. That's how the year thing works. Let's go back. Peak, and then we peaked this year when March happened. A lot of homeowners kept their homes off the market during the shutdown and then put them all back on at once. And the demand was still so high that we still gobbled up all those listings. But that's what this peak is. So that's what happened in 2020. And then, so what Lawrence Yun says, he's the chief economist at NAR, National Association of Realtors, such a frenzy of activity reminiscent of 2006 raises questions about a bubble and the potential for a painful crash. The answer is there's no comparison. If you've talked to me, I've explained this to you. Back in 2006, there were adjustable rate mortgages, many buyers couldn't afford the homes they were getting. Stated income loans were big. If you had a pulse, they would give you a loan on multiple properties, and these adjustable rate mortgages made it seem like they could afford them, but they could not. Some loans didn't require income documentation, that's stated income. Today, buyers are taking out 30-year fixed rate mortgages. 14 years ago, there were 3.8 million homes for sales, and home builders were putting up about 2 million new units. By the way, that was a big component of this. There was a ton of new homes that people were buying as well, and a ton of homes being built. Right now, we don't have that inventory, and we also aren't building nearly as many homes. So we still have a low inventory. We don't have this excess of home inventory that's about to be sitting. So what's come up recently that I've spoken to a few clients about is the mortgage debt levels, because this headline is great. This headline gets a lot of clicks. Americans' mortgage debt soars to record 10 trillion. It's like, well, yeah, we sold more homes this year in 2020 than we did in 2019. And that's even with the pandemic, which is astounding. It's crazy. And because of that, we've also had a lot of refinances. Some homeowners were struggling, so some homeowners took out money with the refinances. But with regards to this 10 trillion, these are the lowest interest rates we've ever seen. So this $10 trillion costs the least amount it's ever costed, if that makes sense. It's the payments on this 10 trillion are the most affordable 30-year payments anybody has ever experienced in the history of mankind. We've hit 14 lows this year when it comes to lowest interest rate ever since we've been tracking. 14. So we hit a new low. And then a couple of weeks later, we have a new low. 14 times that's happened this year. So yes, we've had record sales and we've financed a lot of those sales, but those financed sales are at the cheapest they've ever been. So context matters in this. This doesn't mean people are getting in over their heads. And that is stated here, but I have a graph that shows that as well. Mortgage balances, largest rose by 85 billion in the third quarter and sat at 9.86 trillion in September. Mortgage originations, which include refinances, were at 1 trillion, second highest volume in history, Federal Reserve Bank. So that sounds like a lot. But if you take a look at this graph, this is household debt service, so how much you owe monthly on your monthly payments, the ratio for mortgages as a percentage of a person's disposable income. And this is historically from 1980 to today. So if you look at this, today, because interest rates are so low, that debt, that $10 trillion in debt, serves as the lowest percentage of the American people's income historically since 1980. So context matters. Back. Oh, no, I'm going forward. 4.38% in the 80s to 5%, and then housing bubble was up here. Everybody was over leveraged. They couldn't afford the homes they were buying, and they had adjustable rate mortgages. And then now we have 30-year fixed mortgages with everything that's been put in place to make sure homeowners can make sure this doesn't happen again. Homeowners need to jump through hoops to get their loans, explain every payment they've had in the past 6 months or a year or 2 years. If you've bought a home in the last 10 years, you know what that's like. There's a lot of paperwork and explaining involved. And with the low rates, this is what we come out to. So there's not much risk associated with that large aggregate debt number. Many homeowners are taking advantage of these low rates and they're choosing to buy now, and they will do so continuing to next year because looking ahead, we project that the rates are going to stay super low, which is great for homeowners. You know, get in while you can, purchase a home, get a rate under 3 if you can for 30 years, and you're set. So, I mean, it's fantastic. But at the same time, so we expect home sales to rise because we did this. We had a record year in sales during this pandemic. Now, we expect that the pandemic should come to some sort of resolution, hopefully, I mean, we hope, in 2021, sorry, with some sort of vaccination or getting used to it. If it doesn't, fine, we expect another year just like this year, which already had record home sales. But if the assumption is made that a vaccine comes out and the public out there becomes more comfortable with purchasing homes, many new homeowners will enter this market as long as we continue to have these low rates, and we will have even more sales next year than we had this year. So following a more normal seasonal trend and building momentum through the spring, sustaining the pace in the second half of the year. Basically what this all says is as buyers get more comfortable with the environment out there next year and the rates remain at all-time lows, more buyers will enter the market. Buyers that have been waiting will enter the market, and we'll have another record year next year. So that's your South Bay housing market update. The numbers here in the South Bay look normal. They look like what we would expect. There's less activity in November and December, but that does not mean that it's a bad time right now to list your house, because right now you potentially are the only game in town. More homes are selling that are coming on the market, so you don't have much competition. Where when the activity is equal on both sides, the trend line continues to stay the same, meaning there are less sellers in the market here in December, but there are also less buyers. So rather than having 3 listings available and 60 potential buyers that really like those 3 listings, you now have 1 listing available and 20 potential buyers that want to view and buy that listing. So it's the same ratio that it's been because there's just not that much inventory. So it's not necessarily a bad time to sell a home. It's definitely a good time to buy a home if you find something you like. You have less competition, but it's harder to find something you like because there's less inventory available. There's that trade-off there. Anyways, if you have any particular questions, actually, like, comment, whatever you want below. Really appreciate it. My name is Garrison with Garrison Team Real Estate here in Redondo Beach, California. I thank you again for watching. Feel free to reach out. I'm at Sold by Garrison on both Instagram and Facebook. And you can shoot me an email at garrison@soldbygarrison.com. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.